Hi everyone, Nick here. I'm so happy and thankful that we finally reached 100 subscribers. Apologies for not recording recently, but I've been sick, so I'm still recovering. My voice is a bit different, so apologies for that, but I still wanted to record a few stories in celebration of the 100 subscribers. So thank you again and enjoy the stories. I know most people don't believe in this kind of thing. Hell, I wouldn't believe it myself if I hadn't lived through it. But I did. I saw it, I heard it, and I barely made it out. My name's Henry Carter, and I'm a park ranger out of Colorado. Spent most of my life in the wilderness, tracking animals, reading the land, understanding what the forest wants to tell me. But nothing, and I mean nothing, prepared me for what happened that night in Bladenboro, North Carolina. I was with 3 other guys, Mike, Travis, and Jonah. We'd planned the hunting trip months in advance, wanting to catch the tail end of autumn before winter set in. I had my dog with me too, a big black Labrador named Duke. Smart as hell, always knew when something was off. The drive into Bladenboro was uneventful, but the sky was already turning grey by the time we set up camp. The wind was picking up, and the forecast called for storms later that night. We didn't think much of it. We'd all hunted in bad weather before. Now, I'd heard the stories about Bladenboro. Folks talk about something out in those woods. A long time ago, there were reports of a creature, a beast, that drained animals of their blood, left them torn apart but not eaten. The locals called it the Beast of Bladenboro. A lot of folks dismissed it as an old legend, just a story to keep kids from wandering too far into the woods. But I remember reading the accounts, how people swore they saw something, how they heard something moving in the trees at night, something big. I never put much stock in it, until that night. We'd been hiking for a few hours, scouting a good spot to set up for hunting in the morning, when Duke started acting strange. He stopped dead in his tracks, ears perked, nose twitching. "You smell something, boy?" I asked, rubbing his head. His fur bristled, a deep low growl rumbled in his throat. Not his usual "I see a deer" growl. This was something different. Mike frowned. "What's up with him?" "I don't know," I admitted, scanning the trees. That's when I noticed it. The silence. If you've ever been deep in the woods, you know how alive they usually are. Birds, insects, the rustling of small critters. But now, nothing. Just the wind whistling through the trees. Something was watching us. "Let's keep moving," Jonah muttered. We picked up the pace, heading toward the clearing we'd marked earlier. But as we walked, I couldn't shake the feeling of eyes on us. Every time I turned, I saw nothing, but I knew something was there. We made camp just before sunset. The storm was rolling in fast, thick clouds swallowing the last light of day. We built a fire, cooked some food, and tried to shake off the unease. But Duke wouldn't relax. He sat near my feet, staring out into the darkness, muscles tensed like a coiled spring. That's when we heard it. A branch snapped somewhere beyond the firelight, then another, heavy deliberate footsteps. Not an animal, too slow, too precise. We all went quiet. Jonah grabbed his rifle. "Who's out there?" No answer. Then the footsteps stopped. Mike shone his flashlight into the trees. Nothing, just the swaying branches. But Duke kept growling, low and steady. We didn't sleep much that night. By morning, the storm had hit full force. Rain lashed the trees, wind howled through the branches, and visibility was crap. We decided to pack up and move. The plan was to head back toward the truck, maybe cut the trip short. Something wasn't right, and we all felt it. Then we found the first body, a deer, or at least what was left of it. It was torn apart, its insides splayed out across the forest floor. But there was no blood. The ground should have been soaked in it, but it wasn't. The thing had been drained dry. Jonah swore under his breath. This isn't normal. "Let's keep moving," I said. We picked up the pace, weapons ready. Duke stayed close, his ears pinned back, tail low. That's when the screaming started. It was Travis. We turned and saw him being dragged into the brush, his rifle clattering to the ground. We ran after him, crashing through the trees, calling his name, but when we found him, he was already gone. His throat was torn open, like the deer. There was no blood. I can't even describe the feeling that settled in my gut. I've seen that before, but this was something else. We have to get out of here, Mike whispered. Then we heard it, a low guttural growl, and then laughter. Not human laughter, something imitating human laughter. The storm drowned out a lot of the sound, but we could hear it moving, circling us. It was playing with us. We didn't waste time. We ran. We moved in silence, ducking low, using the trees for cover. The thing followed. I could hear its footsteps, heavy and deliberate. It wanted us to panic. At some point, Duke stopped and let out a deep, terrified whimper. His tail was tucked between his legs, and he refused to move. That's when I saw it. Through the rain between the trees, I caught a glimpse of the thing that had been hunting us. It was tall, unnaturally tall. Its limbs were too long, its body twisted like it had been broken and put back together wrong. Its eyes, God, its eyes glowed like a predator reflecting light, and its mouth, it was too wide, grinning. I don't know how we made it out. We kept moving, hiding when we had to, pushing through exhaustion and fear. Hours passed, maybe more. It felt like an eternity. Eventually, we reached the truck. We didn't speak. We just threw out gear in the back, climbed in, and floored it. I don't know what we saw that night, but I know this. Travis didn't just get killed by an animal. And whatever it was, it let us go. It could have finished us, but it didn't. I don't know why, but I will never go back to Bladenboro. And if you ever find yourself in those woods and the forest goes silent, run. You ever have one of those moments where your whole life flashes before your eyes? I did, and I swear, if I close my eyes and listen real close, I can still hear the wind howling through those damned Wyoming trees. My name's Henry Winchester. I work retail back in Poughkeepsie. Not the most exciting gig, but it keeps the lights on. My real passion though? Cars. I grew up fixing them with my dad and my older brother. Always tinkering under the hood, figuring out what made them tick. But this story isn't about cars or my boring day job. It's about something that shouldn't exist. Something that almost ended me and my friends. It was last summer. Me and 3 buddies, Chris, Dave, and Mark, decided to take a trip out of Wyoming for some hunting. We weren't professional hunters or anything, just 4 guys looking to get away from the daily grind, drink some beers, and hopefully bring back a decent buck or 2. I had my dog with me, a German Shepherd named Duke. Good boy, smart as hell. We picked a spot deep in the woods, far from any town or roads. Just us, the wild, and the wind. It was one of those days where the sky was clear, but the wind wouldn't stop, like nature was trying to tell us something. We'd been out for a few hours, tracking deer, when Duke stopped dead in his tracks. His ears perked up, tail stiff. He let out a low growl, the kind that sent a chill down my spine. "What is it, boy?" I muttered, gripping my rifle a little tighter. Chris stepped up next to me. "You see something?" I didn't, not at first, but then, about 30 yards ahead, I noticed it, a figure. It was sitting behind a tree, half hidden in the shadows, not moving, not making a sound, just staring. At first, I thought it was a man, maybe another hunter, but something was off. It was too still, like it was waiting, watching. "Hey," Dave called out. "You lost or something?" No response. The wind howled through the trees, rattling the branches like bones knocking together. Duke let out another growl, deeper this time, and then the figure moved, but not like a person should, It twisted its head around the tree in a way that no human could, and then it smiled. I swear on my life, that thing had too many teeth. We should go, Mark whispered. We didn't argue. We backed away, rifles ready, eyes locked onto the tree where the thing was. But then we looked again. It was gone. We made our way back toward the truck, faster than before. We weren't running, but we weren't strolling either. Something about that thing wasn't right. I'd heard stories, whispers of something in the woods, a creature called a rougarou. Some said it was a man cursed by hunger, turned into something monstrous, doomed to feast on flesh. Others said it was a spirit that took the form of a man, always starving, always hunting. I never put much stock into that kind of thing until that day. We were almost at the truck when we heard it, a scream, not an animal scream, not a human one either. It was something in between, a raw, guttural wail that made my blood run cold. Then came the sound of ripping, flesh tearing, bone snapping. Duke started barking like mad, lunging toward the noise, but I grabbed his collar and held him back. Chris turned his face pale. We need to go, now. I agreed. Whatever was making that sound, we didn't want to meet it up close. Then the trees exploded. The thing came charging through, moving faster than anything I'd ever seen. It was tall, gaunt, with long limbs and sunken eyes that burned like embers. Its mouth was smeared with something dark, and its hands, God, its hands were drenched in red. Mark raised his shotgun and fired. The blast echoed through the trees. The creature stumbled back, but it didn't fall. It let out another scream, then lunged at us. We ran. I've never run so fast in my life. Duke stayed by my side, barking and snarling, but we didn't look back. We didn't stop. The truck was in sight. Salvation. Chris reached it first, fumbling with the keys. Get in, get in! We piled in, slammed the door shut, and I floored it. The tires kicked up dirt as we peeled out of there, the wind howling around us. In the rearview mirror, I saw it, standing in the middle of the road, watching us go. It didn't chase us, didn't move, just stood there, grinning. We drove until we hit the nearest town. Didn't stop until we reached a gas station, where we sat in silence for what felt like forever. No one spoke, no one needed to. We never went back, never talked about it again, but I know what I saw. And if you ever find yourself in the Wyoming woods and you see something staring from behind a tree, run. You ever have one of those experiences that shake you so bad you never really get over it? I do, and I swear on everything this happened exactly as I am about to tell you. You can believe me or not, but after that night in Bladenboro, I don't care about proving anything anymore. I just know what I saw. My name is Arnold Norris. I'm a mechanic from Seattle. Grew up there, still live there. Got a younger brother, Mike, and my old man used to work on cars just like I do. Always had a thing for fixing things, always felt good getting my hands dirty. In my free time, I hit the gym, keep in shape. But I tell you this, no amount of training prepares you for seeing something that shouldn't exist. It was summer, hotter than hell, but that night, storms rolled in like something out of a horror movie. The sky was thick with clouds, thunder rumbling through the trees like some kind of warning. Me and a few buddies, Ethan, Mark, and Jesse, had planned this hunting trip in North Carolina, figured we'd bag some deer, maybe even a hog or two. But what we found out there, we weren't ready for. I'd read about the area before we went. There were some old stories, whispers about things in the woods, skinwalkers. I'd come across reports, people talking about strange figures, voices calling their names from the trees. At first, I chalked it up to folklore, campfire stories, just something to creep out tourists. I wish that's all it was. We set up camp deep in the woods, miles from the main road. The fire was crackling, rain pattering against the tarp we'd put up. We were swapping stories, laughing, when Jesse stopped mid-sentence, staring into the trees. "There's something out there," he muttered. Ethan scoffed. "It's the wind, man," Storm's picking up. But Jesse wasn't hearing it. He grabbed his rifle, stood up. "No, I swear to God, something's watching us." That's when I saw it, just past the firelight behind a tree. A figure, still as death. It was tall, too tall. Its body was all wrong, like its limbs were stretched just a little too far. And those eyes, reflecting like an animal's. I grabbed my flashlight, pointed it straight at it. Nothing, just a tree. But I knew something had been there. We all did. Then came the sound. At first it was a whisper, like someone mumbling under their breath. Then, clear as day, we heard it. "Arnold." I felt my stomach drop. It was my mom's voice, clear as if she was standing right there. But my mom was back in Seattle. No way in hell she was in these woods. Mark started cursing under his breath. Nope, I don't like this, man." We decided to pack up, move deeper into the trees. We thought maybe we were freaking ourselves out over nothing. That was our first mistake. We didn't get far before we heard the snap of a branch behind us, then another. Something was following us. We moved faster, rifles ready, scanning the trees. Then Jesse screamed. When we turned, he was on the ground, clutching his leg, blood seeping through his jeans. Ethan knelt beside him. "What the hell happened?" "I don't know," Jesse gasped. "Something grabbed me." I shined my flashlight around, and that's when we saw it. No more hiding. It stood just at the edge of the trees, towering over us. Its face was stretched into something almost human but wrong. Its skin was pale, mottled with patches of dark rotting flesh, and its eyes, those dead hollow, locked onto us with something that wasn't hunger, wasn't curiosity. It was worse. It was amusement. It knew we were scared, and it liked it. Then it moved, fast, too fast. 1 second it was standing still, the next it was on all fours, sprinting towards us. We opened fire, shot after shot, but it barely slowed. The bullets hit, but it barely reacted. "Run!" I shouted. We grabbed Jesse, holding him up, and took off. The rain was pouring now, turning the dirt to mud. The trees blurred past as we sprinted, slipping, scrambling, desperate to get away. Behind us, the thing followed, its footsteps barely making a sound. We had no plan, just ran like hell. The only thought in my head was getting out of those godforsaken woods. My lungs burned, my legs screamed, but I pushed forward. I wasn't dying out there. Then, in the distance, headlights, a road. "Go, go, go!" I yelled. Mark fired one last shot, then we tore through the underbrush, breaking out onto the wet pavement. The pickup truck was coming down the road. I waved my arms, shouting, praying they'd stop. The truck skidded to a halt, and some old guy leaned out. "What the hell?" "Drive!" Ethan screamed. "Just drive!" We piled into the back, and as the truck peeled out, I looked back. The creature stood at the edge of the trees, just watching, its head tilted, those hollow eyes locked onto me. And then, slowly, it grinned, like it knew something we didn't. We didn't stop driving until we were back in town, shaking, soaked, and too terrified to speak. Jesse needed stitches. We told the doctor he got caught on a barbed wire fence. Nobody questioned it. We didn't talk about it much after that. What was there to say? No one would believe us. But I'll tell you this, I never went back to those woods, and I sure as hell never will. My name's Michael Mortensen. I don't talk about this much. Hell, I don't even like thinking about it. But since you asked, I'll tell you exactly what happened that night in the Ozarks. I was never one for scary stories. Sure, I've watched my fair share of horror movies, and yeah, I've fallen down to the occasional YouTube rabbit hole about cryptids. I remember stumbling onto some videos about the Wendigo once, people claiming it was real, talking about the weird things they'd seen in the woods. I shrugged it off as folklore, just campfire tales meant to spook people, but that night made me a believer. It started with car trouble. I was driving back from a job in Missouri, my truck packed with tools and supplies. My dog, Diesel, a big sturdy German shepherd, sat in the passenger seat, head out the window, loving the wind in his face. We'd been on the road for hours, cutting through the Ozark Mountains, nothing but trees and winding roads for miles. Then, just as the sun dipped below the tree line, my truck sputtered. The dashboard lit up like a damn Christmas tree. I barely managed to pull over before the engine cut out completely. I stepped out, cursing under my breath. Diesel whined beside me, ears perked up like he already knew something was wrong. Popped the hood, checked the engine. Battery's fine, plenty of gas. I tried the ignition again, nothing but clicks. Great, I muttered. No self-service, of course. The wind picked up, rustling the trees. I remember how quiet it was before that, like everything had just stopped. No birds, no crickets, just the sound of Diesel's uneasy breathing. I grabbed my flashlight and set off down the road, hoping to find a spot with better reception. Diesel trotted beside me, his nails clicking against the pavement. We hadn't gone more than 50 feet when he froze, ears forward, staring into the woods. A branch snapped. I swung my flashlight toward the noise. Nothing, just trees. Another snap, closer this time. Hello? My voice sounded small against the vast empty forest. Silence. Diesel let out a low, rumbling growl. Then I saw it. Between the trees, just beyond the reach of my light, something moved. A tall, gaunt shape, barely more than a shadow, crouched low behind the tree. I couldn't see its face, but I could feel it watching me. A chill ran down my spine. My first thought was mountain lion, but mountain lions don't stand on two legs. Slowly, I backed away, keeping the flashlight trained on that spot. Diesel stayed at my side, still growling. I didn't run, I didn't even breathe. The thing didn't move, it just watched. Then the wind shifted. The air carried a smell, rotten meat like something long dead. My stomach churned, and then it was gone. Just like that. No sound, no movement. The woods were empty again. I wasted no time getting back to the truck. If I had to sleep in it until morning, so be it. But as I reached the door, I stopped cold. The smell was back, closer. Diesel barked, spinning toward the trees, his hackles raised. I fumbled for the handle, throwing the door open. He leapt inside as I slammed it shut and locked it. My hands were shaking. And then, just outside the windshield, I saw it again, closer this time. The flashlight barely caught its face, a gaunt, hollow thing with eyes like burning embers, too big for its skull. Its skin was stretched tight, grey and sickly, its body impossibly thin. Then it spoke, not in growl, not in a snarl. It spoke in my voice. Hello? The exact way I'd said it earlier, perfect, like a recording. My blood turned to ice. Diesel was losing his mind, barking and snarling. The thing cocked its head, like it was curious. Then it moved, not like a man, not like an animal. It jerked, like something trying to remember how a body should work. I don't know how long I sat there, frozen, watching it. Minutes, hours. Then just as suddenly as it came, it turned and disappeared into the trees. I didn't sleep. I didn't move. I just sat there, gripping Diesel's fur like a lifeline. Morning came slow. As soon as the sun rose, I tried the truck again. It started on the first damn try. I floored it out of there, not stopping until I hit the first town I could find. I never told anyone, not at first. Who would believe me? Oh yeah, my truck broke down and the Wendigo tried to talk to me. I'd be locked up in a damn psych ward. But Diesel knew. Even weeks later, he'd tense up anytime we passed a wooden area. And me, I haven't set foot in those mountains since, and I never will. I don't tell this story often. Hell, I don't even like thinking about it. But sometimes, late at night, when the wind howls against my windows, I can still feel it, watching. It was supposed to be a getaway, just a simple weekend at a cabin deep in the Pacific Northwest, away from the noise of Seattle. My buddies and I, Derek, Mark, and Jake, had planned it for months. We packed our gear, some rifles, just in case we felt hunting, and plenty of whiskey. The forecast was weird for summer, unexpected snowfall, but we didn't think much of it. The first day was fine. We hiked, drank, laughed. The woods were eerily quiet. No birds, no rustling leaves, just the crunch of our boots in the fresh snow. It felt like the world had stopped. That night, I stepped outside to take a piss. That's when I saw it. About 20 feet away, behind a massive pine tree, something was staring at me. I couldn't see its face, just a dark, hunched figure peeking from behind the trunk. My breath caught in my throat. "Jake," I called out. Maybe one of the guys was messing with me. No answer. The thing didn't move. It just stood there, watching. I felt ice slide down my spine, but I forced myself to move. I went back inside, locking the door behind me. I told the guys, but they laughed it off. "Probably a deer," Mark said. But I knew better. Whatever that was, it wasn't a damn deer. The next day, it got worse. We decided to hike a bit deeper into the forest. The snow had stopped, but the air was thick with something wrong. I kept feeling like we were being followed. Every time I glanced back, I'd catch a flicker of movement between the trees. Derek was the first to acknowledge it. "Anyone else feel like we are being watched?" Mark and Jake laughed it off, but I saw it too. Something was circling us. Always just out of sight, moving when we moved, stopping when we stopped. Then it started. A game. At first it was subtle, branches snapping far away, then closer, footsteps in the snow that weren't ours, a whisper in the wind, low and distorted, like someone trying to mimic human speech, but failing. Then came the laughter. It was light at first, childlike, but then it grew, warped, deep, guttural, like something old and hungry was toying with us. Mark snapped. "Who's out there?" He aimed his rifle, but the woods swallowed his voice. I grabbed his arm. "Don't. That's what it wants." I don't know why I said that. It just felt right, like I understood, somehow, because I'd played this game before. When I was a kid, I used to do this thing where I'd follow my own footsteps in the snow, making it seem like I was chasing myself. It was a dumb game, but this thing, it was doing that, circling us, over and over, and I swear to God, the footprints weren't always ours. Derek was the first to go down. He screamed, clutching his leg. Something had clawed through his jeans, deep enough to stain the snow red. We fired into the trees, but the thing was never there when we looked, just silence. Then it whispered my name. Not shouted, not growled, it whispered, right into my ear. I ran. I don't remember making the decision. My body just reacted, and the others followed. We stumbled back through the snow, Derek limping between us. The cabin was too far, the town was closer, and that's when I saw it, just for a second between the trees. It wasn't a person, it wasn't an animal. It was stretched like it had been human once, but something had worn it thin. Its skin was pale, its arms too long, its eyes black, hollow, and it was smiling. We didn't stop. We ran for what felt like hours. The laughter chased us, closer now, breath hot on our necks. Then suddenly, lights, the road, a truck. I don't remember jumping in, only the driver's voice. Jesus, what the hell happened to you guys? We never answered. Derek needed stitches. We told the hospital it was a bear. No one questioned it. I haven't been back to those woods since, none of us have, but sometimes, late at night, I hear it, a whisper in the wind, calling my name. Thanks for stopping by, everybody. I'm really thankful of all of you who have subscribed and to all who listen to my stories. Please give me a thumbs up or drop me a comment. Let me know if you would like me to do something better. Apologies again for my voice, but I just really wanted to record these stories. Yeah, thank you again for being here. Wish you all the best and good night.